I'm Chairman Mike Curry, and I'd like to call this Board of Selectmen meeting to order on this 9th day of October 2019. My soda can. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we begin, I'd like to state for the record the entire proceeding this evening, except any executive sessions, are being recorded for both TCTV Cable Station 8 and the TCTV YouTube channel. There really is not a need for extra recording. If you are, just let us know. As always, our agenda for this evening has been set no later than 48 hours. By law, there was no amendments to it, so it was much further than that. And is publicly available at the official source for town information, templetonma.gov. I would also remind all citizens of our 4 villages to sign up or register for emergency updates using the Code Red system, which is on the lower left-hand side of the screen of our website. Although I have the discretion as a chairperson to add and remove from the agenda, it has been set to allow for time, personal resources, and public awareness. I reserve the right to move the agenda items around to best fit our business and guests. Thank you. Carter, if I know that we've got some reports tonight. If you want to make any recommendations on if you think that the order should change or otherwise, I'll be open to that. Following our agenda, we are at public comment. Is there any public comments at this time? No, none? Okay. First item is meeting minutes and executive session minutes. Our first set of minutes are from, well, actually both sets of minutes are from the 23rd of September. We first have our regular meeting minutes. Have you guys had a chance to look over the packet and review those? Excellent. I move to approve the minutes of 9/23/19 as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? I saw no need for change or otherwise. Good job. Thanks, Holly. If there's no further discussion on the motion to approve the minutes for 9/23/19, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. Second set of minutes was for the executive session minutes for the same evening. I move to approve the executive session minutes of 9/23/19 to be released to the public.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the executive session minutes for 9/23. Any further discussion? Those were on collective bargaining for sewer and for the change in the town administrator's contract, just for FYI. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to approve the executive session minutes for 9/23/19, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on an agenda to item 5, which is the bulk of our new business for this evening. Mr. Terenzini, do we have any new employees?
We do, and I would ask Ms. Gloria Weeder to make the first introduction.
Great. Good evening.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce you to Rhonda Parento, who is our new administrative assistant in Development Services. And we are really happy to have her.
That's fantastic.
So,
Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
thank you very much. Glad to be on board.
Um,
Nice to meet you all.
any words or, you live in Templeton or
I live in Gardner.
Gardner? Okay, great. We're very happy to have you aboard.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I wish we weren't in such a, back and forth and everything, but to tell you the truth, I think the town's doing great. We're going in the right direction. I think it's a good time to join the team, so thank you. You got a
I'm really
great,
looking forward to it.
awesome.
Glad to be here. Nice to meet you all.
Any questions?
No.
Okay.
I have one other, Mr. Chairman. Adam, if you would rise, please. Effective Monday, Tuesday, actually, I guess, Mr. Lamontagne will be promoted to the position of Assistant Town Administrator. My hours will be going down a little bit as we discussed and agreed. Adam will have a stronger role as we work through the next year as part of the succession plan for my eventual retirement.
Well, thank you, Mr. Terenzini, members of the board. I'll be speaking a little bit later tonight, but with that, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing working with all of you and all the department heads in the wonderful town of Templeton.
Great.
Thanks.
Adam, congratulations. Thank you very much.
A clap for you. Goody, goody, yay! Good night.
Thanks, have a good night. Any other new employees?
That is
Or
it this
retitled?
evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
This is,
Okay, item 5B, we've got committee appointments for the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Insurance Advisory Committee, retiree rep or reps. Looks like we've got, for Zoning Board of Appeals, I don't see anyone representing any of these tonight.
I'm here for the zoning board.
Okay,
Most of those gentlemen couldn't be here, so.
okay. All right,
I will make sure.
I recognize the names.
Yeah.
Great.
were there 3 openings? Sorry.
No, they're
Re-
actually renewals.
Yeah.
Renewals.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed the names, whether sometimes the language that we have is reappointment or otherwise, but they're 5-year terms.
Wow.
Yep.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I move to appoint as following to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Alan Druin for a 5-year term expiring in June 30th, 2024, David Smart for a 5-year term till expiring in June 30th, 2024, and Rick Moulton for a 5-year term expiring also June 30th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on these appointees? Not hearing any discussion on the motion to appoint Alan Druin, David Smart, Rick Moulton to 5-year terms expiring June 30th, 2024. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Great.
Mr. Chairman, on the Insurance Advisory Committee, a representative for the retiree. This is a 1-year term. We did have 2 submissions, which Holly sent off to you yesterday, I
Yep.
believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
John, or otherwise known as Jack Dale, and former Selectman Gerald Skelton. Was Mr. Dale a police sergeant in this community, or?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was.
And a
Okay.
dare officer.
Are you always a DARE officer as well?
He was, yeah.
Do you know I'm one of the only civilian DARE officers in the state of Massachusetts?
Uh-huh.
Dubious distinction.
Interesting.
It was a little National Guard trick we played.
There you go.
Would you advise to proceed with their appointments?
Yes, so
Okay.
we're full steam, and it would be good to have a retiree rep
Okay.
on the group, as
Excellent.
is required.
I move to appoint as follows to the Insurance Advisory Committee retiree group representatives, Mr. John Dale and Mr. Gerald. no,
I'm afraid we only have 1
That's
opening.
the,
Oh.
that's.
You have 2 applicants, but you only have 1 opening.
All right, I misunderstood.
That's the hard part. Too good.
So it's our decision.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to appoint Jack Dale for the retiree rep to the Insurance Advisory Committee. He brings a unique perspective with a lot of the retirees going to the Medicare Part B and stuff.
Mhm.
He's one of those few that he doesn't have the age yet to go there. So when we make those moves, a little more money comes out of his pocket, and I think having that perspective on the committee
Okay.
would be really good.
Okay.
So I would move to appoint him to the Insurance Advisory Committee for a 1-year term expiring June 30th, 2020.
Second. Any discussion?
I'm not sure I understand. So he has a different perspective, and that's why Jeff is saying
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some changes within the town structure in terms of contributions and otherwise. So, as Jeff's saying, it's to have a different perspective for somebody who's affected by some of the town decisions
So he
within
can
that.
have a voice for other people, so he may not be the only one that was
Because-
affected by these
Because he
things.
sees it from the side of, when you're gonna go to Part B, and a lot of the employees are old enough,
Okay,
you know, to go there, but he's one of the few that aren't.
okay.
So when they're making moves and it's gonna cost those retirees, you know, it's actually gonna be an increase on them. I just think it brings a good perspective to the committee.
I agree. Yeah, he certainly put down
Thank
a lot
you.
of qualifications on the community interest form, which I appreciated, to give that background. We have a motion and we have a second for Jack Dale to be on the Insurance Advisory Committee as the retiree group rep. I apologize for making that mistake. I thought that was two.
Two.
Any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion on the motion to appoint Jack Dale to the Insurance Advisory Committee retiree group rep for a one-year term expiring 6/30/2020. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. Let's see. Chief, were you speaking tonight? Which were you speaking on? Oh, my eyes saw two different things, so, yes, Chief, you're up first. Under item 5C, this is the presentation for quarter one report for public safety. I thought there was Public Works twice. I don't know where. I wanted to make sure
Thank you,
that there was some
Chief. Thank you.
sequencing. Great, thank you. Yep, Diane will definitely be here. You know she likes your report a lot.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Chief.
Okay, so, first quarter, again, very busy and eventful. We had a lot going on, with the station, with the new school opening. So we'll jump right into the station project. We finally moved into the new building, in August at the end. Once again, our staff stepped up. They did the entire move pretty much ourselves. I would like to give a special thanks to the highway department that helped us out, and also the school district that helped us with, we borrowed their truck. So we were able to get everything done. We had a open house on the 5th for the general public. We had a lot of people that wanted to see the new building. And what we're looking at doing is sometime in the spring, after we finish all the projects of the station, because we still have the money from the state to finish the generator and other cruiser coverage and that sort of things. I'm looking at probably doing a grand opening with the actual official ribbon cutting. At that time, we'll have all the political officials and, everybody that's important
Roger.
show up for that. We're still experiencing mechanical issues with the cruisers. The Fords just are not holding up whatsoever. We lost A9, which is the SRO car, last week. Had a nice puddle, probably about 10 to 12 feet long of oil down the brand-new driveway. It's deadlined at this time. I think it's gonna go out of service permanently. Major concern for the residents during the first quarter was the opening of the Templeton Center School. If you remember, there was a lot of chatter about what the traffic pattern was gonna be, how it was gonna work. We did a lot of work with that pattern. And I must say that it has worked out much better than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
There's very little backups. Minor complaints are drop-off pickups, some people blocking driveways of the residents. We're trying to reach out to them to be courteous of the residents. Slight delays when a bus has to pull out. You might be backed up for a few seconds, that's about it. But other than that, everything's moving beautifully.
Yeah.
Get down to the stats. Like before, I gave you the fourth and first, so I'll just point out some of the strong points. ACO calls went up. Just other agencies, just minor. Accident, just minor. Let's see, restraining orders almost doubled. That's par for the course. Good drinking weather. People don't have a lot to do, so we get some domestics. You'll see motor vehicle citations went up quite a bit. Accidents went down, which is also par for the course with the nicer weather. LTCs dropped off just a bit. Calls for service, you'll see a drop off. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't during the course of the summer months, only because it depends what's going on. If we have a busy summer and there's a lot of parties, we get a lot more calls. If not, then everything's quiet. And that's pretty much it. So unless anybody has questions?
I had a question and a statement. So the
Yes.
sign, you got your sign,
Which,
the speed sign.
we have a speed sign.
Right.
We have two more that are gonna be ordered.
Okay, how's that working? I know that I saw some of the jokes online, and I saw even someone throw a high score.
Oh, yeah.
Drinking. Yeah.
But I just wondered
That's always gonna
if,
happen.
you know, like placement and otherwise, I just wondered if it was living up to your expectations, or you think that, maybe just what your thoughts were on the sign.
I think the sign is positive. The issue is sometimes being able to move it around
Yeah.
more frequently.
Do you need a trailer to do that,
No,
or?
it just hooks up to the cruisers. All the cruisers are equipped with trailer packages.
Okay,
But sometimes we can't get it moved when we'd like to.
yeah,
Weather conditions, or if an officer gets tied up, we can't move it when we'd
Yeah.
like to.
it's like the furthest thing from your mind is
Right,
moving around.
and
the
trying
sign.
to move it into an area that's safe for the trailer. We just don't wanna leave it on a road that isn't heavily traveled or near someone's residence, so
Right.
that it doesn't,
Get
vandalism.
vandalized, yeah.
So, but other than that, the community in general actually loved the idea of that trailer going out.
Yeah,
We had, from one of the posts we did, we had over 170 hits
yeah,
in the first 24 hours, which compared to a
Yeah.
lot of our other
it was
posts.
good
it was-
intelligence too. I noticed in that post that a lot of people actually took the
Oh, yeah.
time to describe something, describe conditions or otherwise, so that was pretty good intelligence for you
Really,
too.
park in
yeah.
my driveway, I don't mind, yes.
Yeah.
It was really good.
And the only other thing, I was aware of your feedback based on our fiscal situation, and that you've already had to make changes and otherwise, and so there's losses in hours. I know that you're making changes for it, so I just wanted to say, I'm aware of it. It's very concerning to me. The further we get into this, the more, I'm supposed to not be nervous. I'm supposed to reassure you that I'm trying to fix this stuff. I balance it with, I am trying to fix it, and I am trying to figure out a way to get through this, but at the same time, I know I'm a very good risk manager. I've been doing it many years, and the numbers that you show me definitely make me pay attention. So I very much appreciate that you're sharing that with Carter, and then he shares it with us, or even if we're CC'd or otherwise. But it's getting to us, and I want to make sure that you know that it's not a thing that we forget. You don't just go up and give your speech at the town meeting, and then when it's not it's not convenient to pay attention to it, that we forget about it. It's on my mind all the time. I know that Diane would probably harumph, and bang the table when I say that, but I'm aware.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject?
Yep.
So I had a wonderful tour with Detective Smith, and at that town meeting, a woman got up and mentioned mutual aid, and when I had my tour with Detective Smith, he explained to me, and maybe the chief can go over it and make sure I got it right, that civilians, such as dispatchers, cannot call for mutual aid. So if there's not an officer on between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., the dispatchers cannot call for mutual aid. Only a police officer can call for mutual aid.
That is correct.
A sworn officer. Okay.
Sworn officer. That is correct. So when the call goes out for mutual aid, it would be that an officer, I'll give you, myself, is working by himself, and we have a call that we need backup on. I have to initiate that. a dispatcher cannot take it upon themselves to call for mutual aid.
See the
Yeah.
situation?
Yeah.
So that's not a good argument on the other side, I would say.
We're behind. We need to make sure that we give him the force that he needs.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
If I can, Mr. Chairman, I just want to comment on mutual aid. It is meant to, it is well recognized that no city or town, irrespective of its size, can staff for the most horrific of events that it may have to
Mhm.
deal with. And that is why mutual aid was created, you know. The Boston bombing incident, all of these incidents require staffing and resources above and beyond what any city would plan for.
Yeah.
But it's not meant to be primary aid,
Right.
because a town is unwilling to put the initial base amount of resources forth that it needs.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody says, well, just cut the budget and we'll rely upon mutual aid, I can tell you from the viewpoint of a town administrator, town manager, that at some point, when the mutual aid turns into primary staffing,
Yeah.
those communities will not react the same way. And
Right.
that's just very important to keep in the back.
Yeah,
of-
and mutual
of the
aid is,
community's mind.
it's, as I understand it, mutual aid is not without cost. Is that correct? I know that in many situations, if there has to be a cost share, maybe I'm thinking a little bit more of a disaster planning perspective.
Disaster planning,
Okay.
not a regular daily call for assistance
Okay.
on a regular traffic stop.
Okay,
But if it gets into something of nature of the Lawrence
Yep.
gas
Yep.
explosions,
Right.
then yes, it could be
Roger,
cost incurred.
okay.
But that first rush of assistance, no, there's no cost to
Okay.
that.
Again, good things. I know that Terry winds up bringing a lot of, she listens very well to the community, so I think she winds up clarifying a lot of things that people just don't understand, so that's good.
We will get you the fire and the emergency management reports.
Okay.
For
Chief,
whatever reason.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good night.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Skozik, you ready?
Yes, sir. Good evening, board.
How are you tonight?
Good. I'm gonna read off, I passed everyone out a copy of the quarterly reports for the Templeton DPW and Buildings and Grounds. Start out, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Starting out with Buildings and Grounds in July, the new year began with many changes in the Buildings and Grounds and Cemetery Department and personnel aspects. Mark Machete and his crew were successfully in removing a large boulder that was placed up on Boynton Street Common. And the Buildings and Grounds crew worked with the highway crew cutting some trees and removing some debris in the Green Lawn Cemetery. Staying busy with mowing and trimming throughout the season. August, the new cemetery foreman has started and brings with him a lot of experience. Air conditioners were replaced and one added at the CERT building. This, of course, includes at the cemetery, the commissioners, we voted to have no dogs at the cemetery except for service dogs are allowed. The crews addressed some safety issues for the recreation department at Gilman Wakefield, removing some old sauna tubes and chains that were buried in the ground. They've been busy trimming the bushes and clearing around the library. September, the signs were placed in all cemeteries stating no dogs allowed except for service dogs. The response to this action has been positive. A maintenance schedule is in place, and the equipment is now numbered for identification and tracking for maintenance purposes. An old waste dumping area has been cleared in Green Lawn Cemetery, and the plan now is to address this type of waste by distributing it to proper locations such as scrap metal and wood, chipping, etc. People on four wheels in Green Lawn ran over a flat marker that had to be reset. Four-wheeling in the cemetery is not permitted and it is posted. On the highway, in July, catch basin truck has been cleaning roadside mowing as continues. The DPW garage is running smoothly with a new mechanic on board. The mechanic has been busy and doing a great job. August, much roadside work was done on Hubbardston Road to improve the drainage aspects in many areas. 3 project requests were made to Mass DOT for various types of road work. All 3 were approved. Mechanic is preparing plows and sanders for the upcoming winter months. Roadside mowing and catch basin cleaning is progressing. A sinkhole formed on Baldwinville Road caused by a failed collar on a drain pipe and was repaired by the DPW. September, the new hot box has arrived and is registered and is on the job already. Familiarization and being done correctly with the hot box and repairing some pothole issues. The crews have adjusted to it and seem to like the piece of equipment.
Nice.
Extensive pothole repair was done on South Road, French Road, and Farnsworth Road. We have posted on the town web page that there will be a neighborhood meeting October 1st, so the DPW can go over the work being done. The Mass Chapter 90 money is being spent this year.
Mm-hmm.
All residents can express concerns and questions on the roads that have planned construction. The new refurbished sweeper has arrived and been delivered, and training was given to all employees. The foundation for the salt shed is in place and complete, and the next step will take place, asphalt the base coat,
Mm-hmm.
which has just been done beginning of the week.
Yep.
And the sweeper's been working great, the hot box has been working great. Just got confirmation that next week the salt shed should be delivered and
Saw that in the
start
report.
being installed, so
Yeah, that's awesome.
we're excited and excited for Templeton to be operating in the proper way
Yeah.
they should have been years ago.
You already have a vendor for the salt?
Yeah, we're doing a consortium salt with other towns.
Okay.
So we're actually paying cheaper than what we've been paying.
That's great.
Do you know how many towns are in that consortium now, Bob? That's the one out of Oxford?
Correct. I believe there's almost 20 towns.
Yeah,
It's
20,
the ton
22,
of-
23, if I remember correctly.
It's like over 500,000 tons of salt. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, it's the way to go.
And does like one of the consortium have like a place to put it and then you go truck it and had it?
No, they
No?
truck it to
Delivered.
us.
I bet.
What Oxford does on behalf of the DPWs, and what we will join the French River Collaborative for next year for heating oil, is they simply send out an email.
Yeah.
You wanna be part of the process? Yep. How many tons you want? This is what it is. And they put the bid package together. It goes out as one bid package. We'll get the bills individually, we pay
Yep.
the bills individually.
Mhm.
It can sometimes come with a minimum purchase requirement,
Right.
because they are bidding based upon selling a certain quantity of
Yep.
the product.
Yep.
But there's really,
It's a no-brainer.
there's no lift to it. I mean,
Make a
we've,
phone
it's,
call and it's
you've
there.
gone from 15 minutes to, or you've gone from, an hour, 2 hours advertising to 15 minutes. And so we want to try to get the town involved in more of these regional collaboratives. And I've got some good contacts that I think, along with Bob's contacts, that can help spread that.
Bob, I just had a couple questions. Cemetery committee, I think with the flag question that we had, I got a couple questions within your report, but as soon as you started talking about the cemetery stuff, I wanted to make sure, do you happen to know, or can you email me the next cemetery committee meeting?
Tomorrow night, 6
It's
PM at the
Oh, boy.
DPW.
I thought tomorrow night was gonna be open. I mean, I guess.
And I know
Thursday,
one
the
of the,
10th?
yeah, I know one of the commissioners will not be there.
agenda-wise, I mean, you know why I would have interest, Mr. Kachokachi? Yeah. Has the concern of the flag, so we wanted to be able to go through the whole process and talk with people before we wound up saying, this is the way it's gonna be, or, you know, can we do this, or, you know, let's change it. I wanna make sure that we're going through everything, because I think only through that discovery do people who seem unbending or otherwise then see some of the concerns. And then either they can get re-angry, or they can wind up understanding what it is, and they say, well, what if we did this? You know, we wind up having a compromise.
What I was gonna do tomorrow night was propose what the memos I gave.
Yep.
The Carter and yourselves, let them discuss it and think about it a little bit, cause I don't think tomorrow night, I don't think it's a quick decision to make. I think if they start thinking about it, and then the following meeting, maybe come up with something.
Okay. Yeah, I don't wanna lose track on it, because I don't
We'll
wanna.
make sure it's on the agenda for the following meeting, and
Yeah.
that you have some better advance notice, and hopefully in a week where it's only one meeting that week.
I know. I just don't wanna lose track, you know, many people come, whether it's email, or they come in and they have a public comment, I never wanna lose track on
I agree.
what people are concerned about in the community, and
No, I
certainly
mean,
being a
everybody's-
veteran, and I try to keep reminding the major that, this major also understands
Yeah.
that, you know, that it's important that we have that level of recognition.
I can look and see when the fall next meeting is after this one, I can email you that date.
Sure. That would be great. The large boulder, I just underlined it. I know that was there was like some controversy about it, but it's great that we actually have movement and otherwise, and that Mark was able to help out with that. I asked about the meeting. With the four-wheelers, was the police involved, or were they given that, I use the
No,
word
it's-
again,
like I said,
intelligence?
There's a trail right next
Is
to
it?
the senior center driveway, and, there is signs there. It's a matter of, I mean,
I'm just wondering, they're not coming from, Gill on four-wheelers. It's something that's local, so
Yeah.
when that happens, as long as the police, I know they've got a ton of things, and we're talking about manning, but to kind of put together dots, connect dots and otherwise to say, I saw some kids or young adults or whoever's riding them, we can kind of get to a certain point, ratchet it down to say, we have a good idea who's doing that, so we can give a friendly, hey, four-wheelers are not, please don't disrespect.
I mean, I encourage the residents that live near there, if they do see something, to call the
Say
police
something,
department,
exactly,
or
I
try to
agree.
get colors, or.
Yep. We have a picture in our packet. When you were talking about the drainage aspects for Hubbardston Road, is that the right picture? It's sort of across from Laurel?
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of the area.
I drive that road, so I know exactly what you're talking about, yep.
When I first came in, it's been a problem that's well existed before I started, and that was one of the first things I hopped on. And Gwen Young has been very cooperative. And we just recently flushed some pipes, and Gary Young assisted us on his sister's property. It is a difference up there in that
Yep.
driveway.
Okay,
There was talk, I don't know if there is a builder that wants to put a couple house lots there, but I think he's gonna be able to put one.
oh,
And I've been working with him too on how to address retention.
on the opposite side of Laurel?
Yes, it'll,
Okay, yeah, it's pretty empty in there.
so we talked about different opportunities and suggestions on what we can do, to try to help that neighbor out.
Yeah, it's a good point, opportunities, Okay. Last one, October 1, how did that go?
Good, we probably had 8 or 10 people came in, and it was.
What about my
short and
road, right?
Well, no, it was, I let them know that after we're done the work, that the areas we're working on, I'll go through and evaluate the driveways if they need to be addressed, and some pavement put in to meet what they have. And there was one gentleman from South Road that was talking about South Road, that it's been marked and told that it was gonna be done
Yeah.
over the past years, and the meeting went real well. It was only like 15 minutes. Everybody was pretty decent and understanding on what I was doing.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, may I
Yeah,
ask?
absolutely.
I just, good evening. I just wanted to find out about the refurbished sweeper. Is it, because you mentioned with the salt changeover from sand that, are we gonna still do the street sweeping, or what do we use it
Oh, yeah,
for
we'll
now? And what
continue
the,
the street sweeping, but you'll have less than half of what you usually pick up.
so less wear and tear on the sweeper?
Correct. It should
You
last
mentioned you were
us.
using it now, too.
Yeah, we're using it, we just did Pill Factory this afternoon, and we'll be using it on a few more roads, and then plus your leaves and the buildup, that's gonna take care of it in the spring as well. So, no, it's a nice-looking machine, the guys are happy about it, and it looks pretty solid. We had a couple issues with it, but they came right out and took care of it. The CNN was real nice to work with, and they're holding to their word so far.
I'm looking forward to the salt, because the sand has been such a nuisance on my
Me too.
street. It has really been a big thing.
And just recently, we reclaimed Partridgeville Road. They just finished mixing the calcium in today and fine tuning it and compacting it. If we get a break in the weather tomorrow, they might try to put the base down, but it's all about the weather right now.
You have any observers?
Just a dog, full-legged dog. So if you're walking your pets on there, be careful, because the calcium will,
Oh, there you go, the paw pads.
Any questions? No. Okay. Bob, thank you.
you're welcome.
Adam, you're up. This is the boards and committees listening tour from Adam Lamontagne.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you can see, my report is attached here,
Mm-hmm.
which gets into length on all the time I spent throughout the summer, making sure I went to all the volunteer boards, committees, and commissions
Yeah.
as a way to introduce myself and the succession plan, solicit their thoughts on how, if at all, we can honor our volunteers on an annual basis,
Yep.
listen to the challenges the committees or boards face, at the same time, learn how, if at all, might improve attendance at the, and participation at the all boards meeting.
Yeah.
This was an opportunity,
I saw that.
yeah,
The recommendation to have pizza available. I wonder if the recommendation came from people that had not gone and didn't see the spread that Luann had put out.
well, I think they like that, but they want pizza
Yeah.
too.
Oh, okay.
More food. Maybe I
Right.
should have put more food choices. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, yeah, I mean, if they want to turn it into an event like that, like I think Carter had said before, sometimes it's everybody and it's awesome, and then sometimes it's nobody and we're all just kind of looking at the usual suspects from across the table. But I did see that, and I think great recommendation, but I definitely wanted to say, hey, Luann, we definitely know what you did in the spread that you put on. Thank you.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yep.
Her and Tom.
Yep.
So basically, I think recognizing one volunteer of the year seemed to be the suggestion, the general consensus from the various boards. Having, as you can see in the attachment, having a plaque up here at Town Hall,
Yep.
just a placeholder for each year, and with a simple acknowledgement at Town Hall, maybe giving them a small plaque too, I think is probably the best way to go about doing this. There's a policy that's also attached
Yep, saw that.
for review. And basically, what I did is in the report as well, I tried to put a brief synopsis of everything that happened at the meeting, just to give you an
Oh,
idea.
that was good.
Yeah.
I very much appreciated that, yeah.
That'll be quite an honor, sorry, excuse me.
Is that an example, or is that actually what the plaque would be? Like this
Well,
says
that's
the-
an example, because.
An example, okay.
Yeah, I was involved with an organization that had a plaque like
Okay.
that, and each year they give like a service award out.
Yep. No, it was a good example. I saw the Boutin Lemieux Service Award, and I thought, oh, maybe it already has a name, but no, it's an example.
Yeah. And some of the challenges they faced centered mainly around communication. As you know, in town, we have a lot of these boards, committees, and commissions, the zoning board of appeals, the planning board, and
Economic development.
yeah, and I mean, they get their office support. I shouldn't say the ZBA and the planning board, because Lori does a pretty good job at keeping them updated, but
Sure.
I would say the sewer commission and the ZBA might not know what each department's doing, so knowing what's going on with various town departments and having everyone essentially on the same page was, so what we worked on with Holly and Carter was having every interested person being able to subscribe to our weekly report. So that way, I mean, the select board get the information, but then if somebody else from another board wanted to, they could subscribe and get that same information as well, as a
Yeah, I
way to
would
keep them updated.
think that would be a distribution group. I mean,
Well, we do post it on the web.
okay, yeah,
But-
but I mean, like at Office 365,
Well, our website has drop-down boxes, and I forget exactly what we call that one. We may change the name of it. But you can subscribe, so you get different kinds of, you get an email alert whenever something is
yep, I get them all the
posted.
time.
So we're, try to have that all done to roll out within,
Like an
6
opt-in rather
weeks.
than an email blast.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it?
And then you can sign in for multiple things, you know. Maybe you have a project, maybe you're interested in the Stonebridge project. That's all you wanna know about. You can subscribe to that. Maybe all you wanna know about is what's going on with the recreation department. And so if we can get that a little bit more refined, make sure every board and committee member as they're sworn in is aware of that. And one of the things that the editorial we is gonna do, by virtue of directing the individual him to do it, is to create a committee, board and commission member handbook that the town clerk can give them. That'll
Right.
contain more information.
Right, like an
including this kind of thing.
orientation style.
Yeah,
something-
exactly. So-
Something that they, yeah.
We're hopeful that if we can get more people reading the weekly, they'll have a better sense of connection as to what's going on
Yeah,
across the organization.
and they can refer back to it. That's the greatest part about, if you're gonna do it not as an orientation, but as a handbook, especially if you're updating it with, annual, I think that works.
Right, so we're hopeful that that can provide a little bit better connectivity for people.
And also, we already set up to where we worked with the town clerk's office and Rich Curtis. Rich Curtis was trained with this ID machine, so that way when people get sworn in, they also get their ID as well,
Mhm.
which makes it more efficient for people, let's say, that get appointed to the advisory committee.
What's
or-
the frequency of that occurring? Is
we're-
that like everybody, is that like something that you would try and do at all boards because you're getting everybody? Because, I mean, Rich isn't by every time.
It's gonna be
Where's his, like, I don't know where the machine is or otherwise, but
it's in the town clerk's office.
is it, okay.
Yeah, so basically, if somebody were to come in, but generally, we're gonna try to get it when they get sworn in, they get the
Yeah.
ID there. But there's gonna be,
I know it was an all-call, that's how I got mine. And
Yeah.
make sure that Rich gets my, like, ICS certifications and stuff like that, but, okay.
yep, so we have a plan in place for that, and that's really all I really have for you. I mean, unless there's any particular questions.
Maybe observations. I definitely appreciated the prose that you used to develop these. You definitely took some time, but what I did like is that you brought some of their concerns forward. There's one here, well, there's one in particular, but like, they said, in one of them, they wanted someone recognized. It was just right in front of me, like, they would like to see Pat Gale recognized in the Cultural Council.
Yep.
You had another one, I don't remember which one it was, that talked about, might have been the ZBA, the stipends. They
Yeah.
talked about, it's been a long time since they had a stipend, it was like $100 a year. What's it, number one, thank you for bringing that concern, I like the fact that you wrote those into this. because there's a variety of communication things that winds up coming up through us as well. Jeff goes to a lot of meetings. I don't go to as many meetings, so I rely on what's emailed out and printed sometimes. So about the stipends, that pendulum swung way the other way, and I feel it's like coming back. And in the comments that you had in your text here, it was like a sense of recognition or otherwise, or that it is volunteers.
Yep.
May not be the perfect fiscal environment to discuss those things, but certainly I think way forward, how is Templeton getting better? You do the volunteer awards, or you wind up having a stipend account that winds up taking care of things like that, where they're not even talking about something that's a lot. But it's becomes incentive. At least you get something. A lot of these meetings are in the evening. If people are coming from work, maybe they can stop and get something to eat. If they think, you know what, I'm gonna do that because at least I get a stipend for it. So that's the kind of thing I liked about your report, is that you were offering some of the feedback from these on your listening tour.
And then also I met up individually with Glenn Eaton and Steve Castle, members of the EDIC, even though we don't have enough for a quorum.
Right.
We did take a tour of a facility in Orange,
Yeah, saw the picture, yeah.
at the Innovation Center. So, I mean, it's things like that, taking the time out and making sure that they know that they have the resources to succeed. And that's 90% of life is attendance, right?
I'm glad you brought up the Orange Innovation Center, because I highlighted that, and that was very proactive of you, and I hear so many good things. I volunteer down the street from it, and it's very highly rated,
Absolutely.
so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What we would ask the board to do, Mr. Chairman, is just to think about, or, read on this report for another week or two or whatever, and then we'll be reaching out to see if, a meritorious service award with a small plaque at Town Hall, then recognition within the annual report, and this master plaque, if you will, similar to the Burnham, what was the other?
Yeah, it was like this, yeah.
Yeah, so at the town hall, there's often a presentation made at the town meeting. Picture of that goes in the annual report, and then there's sort of the record copy, if you will.
Right,
With
yeah,
the small here.
yep.
So if the board thinks that's something they're interested in, we'll be asking you in 2 weeks. We'll prepare a formal
Sorry, I'm late.
policy, and the challenge is getting around the open meeting law. Because when you end up doing all the voting in public, it kind of takes the drama out of the moment, but we can work through that.
Yeah. All right, we'll work through that. I love it, I think it's a great
We could have it
idea.
ready for this, we could have it ready for this spring.
Yeah, I made it where the policy would be the select board that would choose
Okay.
the volunteer of the year.
All right. The funds for all this stuff would come out of the selectmen's.
It's budgeted, and we have them budgeted.
It really is. I mean, for what it winds up representing, the cost is negligible for what it's gonna cost to print stuff, the awards. I mean, this one's reusable. All you gotta do is just engrave it.
And then you get
Thanks.
the nomination form, and then you
Yep.
get the pick.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm very excited about it. I think going forward, our town's come a long way, has a little bit more to go, but this is one thing that's really positive. And the fact that it's only one person, what a distinguished award.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
Thank you.
Diane, so Adam just gave his listening tour. I know you know all about his listening tour. So I don't know if you have
And all
any.
18
Perhaps,
pages.
Adam, could I come in tomorrow and could you explain it to me? I'm so sorry.
It's
I
a-
was at the school committee meeting, and I'll give a report on that later. But could I come in, will you be here tomorrow, and could you just go over that with
I
me?
will be here all day,
Thank you.
just for you.
I
I was not
I
gonna
think
come
he's
in, but
lying
since
on
you
that
asked.
one. Yeah,
You could give me a little rundown.
okay.
I enjoy spending time with you.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the school district, how perfect that you would be walking in. Is the school district meeting and related matters.
Okay, let me get out all my notes. Okay,
And
let me
any,
catch
any
my breath,
discussion
thank
we
you.
may have.
So, I just came from the school district committee meeting, and I will say there was a large turnout, mostly the Narragansett Regional Education Assistance people. It was a packed house, and there was one person, it was standing only. And teachers, administration, parents, and students. And they were ready to rock and roll. So, Eric Iben is the leader of the NDEA, and he spoke after. There was public commentary, and there were 2 students who spoke. One spoke of his great experience here, and he spoke highly of Principal Vassal of the high school. One student spoke about Facebook comments, which I will have commentary on later during,
Board member comments.
yeah, yes, so I would like to speak on that later.
Okay.
And about how they are not represented. And please, to the public, remember that I am hearing impaired, and unfortunately, I was sitting in the front row, and people are facing away from me, so it was very difficult for me to hear. The nurse got up and spoke, and about the number of students that come to see and go through the nurse's office regularly, and losing a nurse would be very detrimental to the school system. And Mrs. Lyons got up and spoke and wanted them to stick with the current budget, because she is actually the person behind the camera and has seen the school committee go through its ups and downs, its arguments, and crying together, and of course, she would like them to stick with the budget. So that was the address of the public commentary. Let's see. The business manager's report, there is 1.4 million in of school choice, $776,000 out. In the revolving account, they are using 1.4 million. So they are just right there. They are actually spending 50,000 more than they are anticipating coming in. So that's why it is very difficult using school choice money, because right now they're a little bit upside down. They're staying with the allotment of the 112 budget, which I would hope so, because we're giving them the money, and we don't have more to give them, so there's really not a lot to play with. So they were spending a little bit more, say, in the beginning, like just what happens with us, like maybe the highway department spends most of their money in the beginning, and then they kind of peter off, and maybe the building and grounds spends all their money maybe towards the end of the year. So that's where they are at the moment. The circuit breaker funds, if I understood it correctly, and again, you'll have to forgive me because my hearing impairment is at a loss, but hopefully it will even out. They reminded everyone of the 7 o'clock meeting on the 22nd of the FY20 budget vote. So when they spoke about that, they are not afraid of the state coming in. The 22nd is the vote that matters, though. Mrs. Trifilo spoke about that. And people wrote to her and thought that everything was all set because Desi came in and gave them their 112 budget. And obviously people are not understanding, just because they gave them that budget doesn't mean that they will give them that budget on December 1st. They did already come down $600,000. She feels that the 19.78 budget is the correct budget for the students. But Dr. Casafant spoke, and a decision needs to be made. Mrs. Trifilo said also that she likes to solve problems on her own, and she feels that we're trying to, as a board, do the same thing. We're trying to solve our own problems and not have the state come in here, not have Desi come in here and solve problems for us. But Mrs. Trifilo is supporting the 19.78. And so is Mr. Marks, and so our other school committee members were nodding their head. Dr. Casavant spoke and said a decision needs to be made, and carrying out this any further is unacceptable to him. So, but when it came time to was anyone going to make a motion on their budget? Were they going to go down to the 19.5, or were they going to make any other kind of motion? No motion was made, so last week's motion carries.
Of 19.786.
The 19.786 carries. So no one made a motion this week, so last week's motion of their original number stands. But they did remind everybody that Mrs. Trifilo said that the 22nd is the vote that matters. So it seems like that this meeting is going to be the meeting that matters, and a decision will have to be made, because it seems like they don't want to wait until till Desi comes in to make a decision for them. That was the impression that I got. I could be wrong, but that is the impression that I got.
Okay.
Every vote should have, I would like to just give my opinion, every vote that we've had, the override was passed over. We've had, it was turned down at the next meeting, it was turned down at 2 joint meetings. It was at 19.5, and the voters have not been listened to. So I think that they're hoping that this time around, with the letter that went out, with 2 elementary teachers, a nurse, an admin, and 1 other position that will be cut, they're hoping that more, maybe parents and guardians come out, and a different vote will be made. Are there any questions for me?
No questions.
Okay, I hope I gave a strong report.
Yeah, again, it's the squeezing the balloon on either side. No one wants to have the $300,000 to $400,000 bill left on their doorstep, and that continues to be the main issue.
Mrs. Trifilo did say that each board is trying to do their job. There was an agenda item for the district town meeting moderator selection. I'm sorry, I've had so much on my plate. I haven't been able to keep up with my emails. That we will be meeting at 6:30 on the 22nd, and there will be a quorum of the school committee at that meeting.
Okay, so they want to meet a half hour before
Yes,
to choose
a half an hour before at
All right.
6:30 on the 22nd to choose
I believe
a moderator, and
it's their
I
turn.
think that was that in our
Right.
email?
It's
Or
their
Carter
turn
sent an email
moderator.
to someone? Miss-
Yeah.
On this alternating the meetings, and should you have to do this in the future, I would suggest you alternate for the whole series, not alternate, but just have one town for the series of them. But after the last
Okay,
meeting,
yeah,
Mr. Flynn had informed folks that he was not
yes,
prepared to do it this time. Ms. Pratt, the chairman of the Phillipston Select Board, asked if we would reach out to Mr. Henshaw, and we did at her request. And so she indicated to me that, subject to joint agreement on 6:30 on the 22nd here, it was the Phillipston Board's intent to join the Templeton Board in selecting Mr.
Requesting.
Henshaw. And he is prepared
okay.
to do it that evening.
I thought I had don't they have 2 other people that fulfill that function within Phillipston? Are they
My
unwilling to?
understanding is they were unavailable or declined.
Okay,
So, Mrs. Hughes did say that she was told that Mr. Henshaw was available and was willing to do it, and that if we met at 6:30 on the 22nd, there will be a quorum of the school committee.
okay. I had a question at the end of our last joint meeting from Mrs. Toth. She goes by Cricket, I don't remember her first name.
Liz.
Okay, Liz Toth, she had said, why did they not choose the moderator publicly? I think as long as they post that 6:30 meeting, that suffices. I know that there was differences between the way Templeton and Phillipston did that, appointed the person. I think when we did it, we had a meeting right in front, and we said,
Both were posted for the Kiva room at the,
okay.
They were posted publicly.
Yep, I know that she had
Finding
that
their
concern. I
postings
wanna
can
make
be
sure
challenging.
that, we probably should make that, I just would like to make that statement that, Mr. Henshaw was chosen as the moderator at a publicly
Yep.
posted meeting.
Yep.
Because I think that's sufficient for what Ms. Toth said. It seems like the decision was made for us, and I said, well, it's our decision,
Our
but I suppose you didn't know.
It was done
So
in
even, just a
Akiva
quick
and
announcement.
Jeff and Terry and I were there,
Yep.
and I had left the
Mhm.
room to call Mr. Henshaw and ask him if
Yep,
he would
I
be able
remember.
to do it. And I came back in and he was able to,
Okay.
And
No,
we
it's the
went
public
on
side
the
of it,
meeting.
yeah. Just, yes.
but it was a
And
public
and
meeting.
if I may, there's a difference between when your town moderator is not available to be present for your town meeting. In that instance, there is a nomination and a second, and the town meeting representatives, people there
Okay.
that night. For a district meeting, that is not a decision of the meeting. That is a decision as set forth in statute by the two, by the collective number of member boards coming together. And that
Okay.
may have been where some confusion came in.
Yep, and I think I just didn't handle the question adequately. I said it's not our meeting, it's the school committee's, it's a
Right.
joint meeting. Okay, we're still on this agenda topic. Thank you, Diane, for that.
You're welcome.
Before I drop a bomb, any other discussions on?
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chairman. When we met with Phillipston, did they mention their policy for people that are not from our town speaking at the meetings? And they mentioned that they announce them all at the beginning and have a vote to let them speak. Do you remember that?
Could you explain that again?
So.
I don't recall
So
discussing that
someone
at the
said
joint
something
meeting.
about calling people up to speak that aren't from Templeton, and that it was supposed to be, they're supposed to
Oh,
be.
the subject
ele-
matter expert?
Yeah, subject matter expert, if they're not from town, we're supposed to vote, have a vote
Oh.
to allow them to speak if
I,
they're not.
I thought the decision was the town moderators to make.
Okay,
There is actually a provision in town meeting times, which is our official guide vote, that unless someone stands up, the moderator can allow someone to speak who is not a town resident or a registered voter, unless you have some voters stand up and say, hey, I object, I don't want that guy speaking.
Right.
Then you have
Okay.
a town meeting vote. But it is spelled out in town meeting times.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think that actually did occur, when you were trying to speak at one meeting, Carter, and I think we had a quick, vote to allow him to
Yeah.
speak, so, yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
okay.
I think the last time that we mentioned this, before the last district meeting, Carter had, Mr. Terenzini had asked us, what is the board's intent? Going into the joint district meeting, are you going to propose an amendment? Are you going to be silent or otherwise? I'd like to still give Carter that answer, but I want to make sure that the board has a chance to kind of talk through the different courses of action for it. The last time, we almost said, well, we're not going to say anything. And we're gonna take the risk, and let the voters basically say yes or no on 19.786. We also discussed offering what I view as middle ground. I think a lot of times they say, well, we've already come down. That is true, $500,000, $600,000 that they came down. But I also go further back. I mean, when you really take the forensics of this whole process, well, we already came up 2.5%. Carter, what does that number represent? That's about 350?
The initial move was about 150,000 above the zero we had spoken of a year ago.
Yeah. So there's already understanding that the school needs more money. We talk about minimum contributions, we talk about how much we pay over that amount. Carter has given us a couple of sheets of paper that still talk about how much over that minimum contribution we will be paying. So that, in highlight of that, we split the difference and said, we're talking about school budgets, so let's split it, even though the school committee really didn't view it as a split, as Dr. Casavant said, he's like, you're throwing $280,000 on us on top of the 600 that we've already done it. But again, that was an amendment, that we made twice for 19.5. We argued the heck out of it on the floor, and two times, we have voted for the 19.5 split. This time, I think is a little bit different, as Diane has explained it, that they seem to get some steam behind them. They packed the house. I know you're gonna talk about social media later, about who's been on there advocating for what and whatnot. We can expect that. Again, no one wants to take a $400,000 hit. To say that it can be absorbed into some account or otherwise is faulty on both sides. I don't wanna take the hit on public safety and the variety of different things that we have to cut, that we still have to meet. Carter made the point to me just today, we still have to meet in this forum that we promised the voters to talk about those cuts, because it's their money. So that's 19.5. I suppose, and I had heard rumblings from the last meeting, that there could be an in-between course of action. So you have 19.5, which, people would presume that we would stand up again and offer that amendment. But that someone else could get and amend the amendment between 19.5 and 19.786. I think that's a discussion point we could have as well. Certainly above the 19.5, again, is money out of our budget. Jeff in the last meeting posed a lot of different numbers. You know what, I used the wrong word, not different. Numbers that he gained that were probably fresher than some of the numbers that were being used in this process. In using those numbers or in viewing them, I certainly appreciate you bringing them out, and I think a lot of this, that you got some pretty positive feedback from the school, from some of the school committee to say, all right, we'll do this, we'll adjust that. I think they made an adjustment on October 1st. There is a course of action if we get nowhere, or we wind up not agreeing again, and we get to December 1st, that we take risk in saying whose numbers are going to prevail. What happens on December 1st? What numbers are really going to be considered by DESE? Does the school have not enough money, which is what their contention is right now? Do they have the right amount, or do they have, probably laughable to say, too much, right? But that's certainly another course of action. It was floated in the last meeting, there was some discussion about why isn't the town using emergency release valves, circuit breaker, anything that we have available to us? And I really thought a lot about it. And the thing that occurred to me is, in the past, we've taken care of capital items for the school. There's been special situations, and I think a lot of people in the audience said, well, this seems to be a special situation to me. There's probably the most special situation that occurs to me is that we just opened a brand-new school. And in doing that, we assumed a lot of cost, and within their budget item, they identified specific costs that were attributable to opening this school. My logic, and again, this is, my thought about it, and I've tried to socialize it individually with members that are trying to get through this. My logic is, if we have opened a school this year, we wind up having some one-time or some non-reoccurring costs, can we then consider using a portion of our free cash, basically what winds up getting fleshed out as our capital budget, to be able to take care of these non-recurring costs for the school in opening that new school, and therefore leveling out our presumably, as close as we can, level out our FY '20 issue. So that's the bomb that I drop off. Our financial management policy clearly states, and anyone watching within the cable channel or the YouTube video, our financial management policy clearly states that we will not use free cash for operating expenses. And the reason for it is because the money this year that we use will not, you cannot consider it to be available for the next year. And there's a whole host of planning considerations for that. Many people have brought up that that's exactly what this Board of Selectmen has done in the past, and it had the effect of using a credit card to pay off a credit card. It's trying to use money that you do not have to satisfy your current crisis. So, as a discussion item, I say to you, do you believe that we are in a unique situation, that we are opening a school, and in cooperation with the school, fund things that are not reoccurring as a cause of opening that school, structure, otherwise, not necessarily staff, because the staff's not going away after a year. But in my view, it becomes a path where I'm responsive to a lot of the voters who said, what other items can you consider? And I view this as a one-time, non-reoccurring expense if the school committee can actually present items to us that are in fact non-reoccurring and so that we do not violate our financial management policies. I wish I could drop it right there, but what is the consequence? The consequence of doing that is that we reduce something that we rely on. We talked about the hot box. We talked about the salt shed this past year. Those are capital items that we funded with a very healthy fiscal year and free cash certification. We put the money into CapEx, other mandatory accounts that we have to put into, but we were essentially able to have a very robust capital year. If we do go the route and fund the school for their non-reoccurring school opening expense, we would virtually cut in half, if not decimate, our capital budget. And the department heads, I assume, would wind up either giving me heck, Carter, and I've already talked about it. There are a lot of considerations with this, but I'm trying to find a light in the tunnel for FY '20. I do not have a light at the end of the tunnel for FY '21. I do not, but I pledge my support to the school committee for trying to figure that beast out. Subject to your comments, questions, or otherwise. Any part of that, any of the COAs that I talked about, 19.7, 19.5, and a number in between, this board does nothing.
I'll speak to that.
Okay.
So I don't feel like we should go into, based on the people who have spoken to me about the letter that went out from the school. And I have people who support that. They don't want to see the cuts to the school. In addition to still supporting, they asked if we were still going to support the 19.5. And they don't want us, they're asking me not to go into the meeting without some kind of strategy again.
Okay.
And that they're not speaking for the rest of you, that they liked the idea that we're still supporting, standing up and supporting the budget for the town. And I've heard from both sides of the aisle. I also watch what happens on social media, except for a couple of pages that are very derogatory. I will not be involved in that. I also like the, whatever bomb you just dropped. Is that what you wanted to call it?
Sure.
I don't really
We'll
think
call
that
it
that's a bomb.
course of
I
action
hadn't really thought of
bomb.
any idea like that. So if we could, follow our financial policy, and there's a reason that we created that financial policy, because things that had been done for years, we've worked, since I've been on this board, worked our way out of that hole. And we promised the voters of this town that we would never go back there again, and to use money for one-time expenses. It's exactly like what you said. It's using a credit card to pay a credit card. and we already are in, and that is be the quickest way to get us a higher,
Credit rating.
a lower credit
A
rating.
lower credit rating.
Sorry, so not higher, lower. I had to really think about that in my head. And we just got a new school, and we really don't want to do that to the taxpayer. So I would be in support of that.
It requires the school committee to, we can't do that alone.
Right.
Yeah, it really
But
requires.
to go to them with that and to talk to them about that, at least it would open up some dialogue, where their budget is up 9.5%. 9.5% is a lot for this town to take on.
Yeah,
And the voters, some people ask me, why can't you go for an override? Well, the reason that we didn't do that is because the voters of this town overwhelmingly said no to an override. And I think, based on the comments that I've heard from the rest of the board, you don't go back to them with even a small override, because I believe the townspeople, the ones that I've spoken to anyway, are overrided out. They're concerned about not being able to, we're in a reval year, and their taxes are going to possibly be going up. And their taxes are gonna be going up for that. The school hasn't hit their tax rate yet. And, so there's that, and there's that, and there's, so they're starting to panic a little bit.
Yep.
So they don't wanna see this happen, so they're asking for all of this to happen right now within the confines of the budget that we have. So that could happen within the budget that we have.
yeah, I mean, even at this point,
So that's why I
adding
said that.
something on, even if we went for another override, my friend down the road, Mr. Thomas, he's asked for it a few times, and I heard him, but that's still adding on to the tax
Tax
rate.
rate,
I
right.
think our estimation for 988 was an extra $1.17. No, actually, it's probably more than that.
It's more than that.
So even half of that would still be adding on to it. My mandate out of that vote, or what my understanding was overwhelming no, and they said, this isn't gonna be on the taxpayers this time.
Right.
You have to figure this out.
Right.
And then between the school committee and us, we had to do that. And I think we've proven that, for the most part, we didn't work well together. Or somehow there wasn't enough communication. Even if that's coming out of your meeting still, we are communicating. We are allowed to have individual conversations, not every single time we speak on a subject needs to be a public meeting. So there are people talking through this thing. But I look at all the different things arrayed in front of us, and, I guess I'm putting a little bit of a word in your mouth when I wind up saying, we hang on to it and we wind up relooking those numbers. I look at it as, if we do nothing, or actually 19.5 wins, and we get to December 1st, that aspect of waiting them out and going and then seeing what the numbers shake out, could that work? Maybe. Someone still, I think, is going to wind up losing, but I try and look at where is the risk in hanging on to that. That's one of the ones that is higher on the list of, maybe we should wait. I know a lot of people in the community have discussed that, to say, the fact that we keep going back and forth, maybe they should come in and.
Yeah, people have said that to me too.
Yep.
Do you have an idea of any of these one-time purchases? I ask that because I believe we would have to go through the billing of the elementary school, because a lot of that stuff has been bought out of the bond.
Right.
The furniture was included, this was included, they were buying,
Yeah,
before you pay for it twice,
right.
you know.
I couldn't.
Could we do it with the high school or the middle school? I mean, those would be one-time costs, and it'd still be part of their capital expense, and it's still a building that
Yeah, I don't.
You know, I mean,
I'm
would
not
we
sure
be able
what
to
they
do
have
that?
going on over there. I thought they had a couple things going on, but I can't, off the top of my head, I don't.
I can't think of anything,
the
but I mean, it would
school.
be, we could ask them to show us some one-time capital expenses.
Yeah, they are thin on capital expenses. You know, they talked about the bleachers. I think they needed a truck, but we're talking about
Oh, so
relatively lower items. Terry?
Right, we don't wanna pay for that twice, you're right, Jeff?
You said it yourself. It didn't work in the past. We used free cash, and it didn't work in the past, and it was a
For
detriment.
operating
For
expenses.
operating
For
expenses.
operating, not capital.
Not capital.
Right, your free cash can be used for capital, and that's what it should be used for, but not operating.
If you if you go to the state's website for description of free cash, it's a tough document to pull, because the first thing it says on in the front part of it, it says you can use free cash for operating expenses, but then it spends the rest of the webpage and the rest of the paper telling you why it's such a bad idea. So back to your point, Terry, yes, in the past, decisions were made to use free cash to go back into the operating fund for the town because they didn't have enough money for what they budgeted for.
They also wanted to keep the tax rate low.
Right. And that got us into trouble.
A lot of trouble.
And so this board worked with the CFO, the chief financial officer of the town, and they came up with financial management policy that would prevent things like that from happening. So we try and be our own watchdog for that. The reason why I get behind the use of free cash for this is because I say, following our financial management policy, to say, I'm not gonna augment the school's operating expenses. I'm going to use this year as leverage, because they have that, at the school, they had a major shift in their budget. I want to take that as leverage to say, give me something in your budget that is a non-reoccurring expense, it's not part of your operating expense, that I can fund, that will assist you in your budget issue. So by virtue of, if they say 19.7 and we allow that, it would be by an agreement to say, we're gonna take care of X, Y, and Z that equals $100, $200, $300, $400,000, whatever they can give to us to do it. If they can't give that, I cannot get behind it, because I can't advocate for using free cash in this way. We're already making the gentleman at the other end of the table very nervous about using the free cash in that way, right? We wind up basically taking our capital budget and sweeping it away, which is not good. We're
Not
trying to get
acceptable.
better.
Not acceptable.
If the school can't work with this on how we can help with this, then I couldn't support it. But right now, if they could, I would support this action.
Jeff, there are some unreimbursed expenses, but I don't know if I remember correctly. Did it all have to do with land? Did it all have to do with land clearing, and do you think it all had to do with that? I mean, I can do some research through some of my
On the
notes.
elementary school?
Yeah, did it all, and I'm sorry that you're sick.
Yeah,
I
a lot
hope
of
you
that
feel
stuff
better.
is not reimbursable, it just comes right from the town. So,
But I mean, do you think there are things that we can work with?
end of the table, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, end of the table is
So-
holding his
Oh.
hand up.
I'm sorry, go,
If
Mr.
I might-
Tarantini, please, yes.
I struggle to recognize it's actually Jeff at the other end. His voice is,
I know,
A bit off
right? I
tonight.
know.
So first, I want to be correct two things, if I might. Our policy says we shall not use free cash to build the annual operating budget as we go into that planning process. It does allow for the use of free cash to support an operating budget in financially distressed times, if we can do a 3-year cash flow projection and show how we're gonna work our way back out of that. So I do just wanna be be careful about absolute statements that says,
Yeah,
we will not use free cash.
I think you're 100%
So-
right
so,
to check me, yep.
The concept being is that except under dire financial stress, so for instance, in '03, when the state's revenue sharing dropped by 25 and 30%, but you knew that that was an economic downturn, and you'd be coming back out of it. Some towns, including my own, did use free cash, but only after having gone through this process of determining there was a way back out.
Yep.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, the debt on the school actually is, for the most part, now in today's tax rate in one fashion or another.
Oh, it is.
There may be
So
a
I want it.
25, I forget the actual number, page 233 in the budget book, or somewhere's in the 250 plus or minus. There's another modest
Okay, so I
uptick.
apologize to the public that I'm
25
wrong about some of that.
25 cents, 40 cents, but for the most part, it's already in
Okay.
there. With respect to the construction, those items, whether they were reimbursed or unreimbursed, are paid, they're done, and they're not in the operating budget
Okay.
of the school committee. So, based on the chairman's suggestion, let's say, for instance, you were buying a 1-ton, which is a one-time expense, one time for the 10 years anyways. Out of your operating budget, then under our budgeting, you would use some free cash to buy that, because it's not a recurring expense.
All right.
So, I just want to be clear on those couple of points, so that, folks are having the discussion with that light.
Part of, what is different between FY '20 and FY '21? I would say probably not a whole lot. The numbers aren't going to magically change between them. In fact, I think admittedly, they get worse for Worcester County retirement, insurance rates, collective bargaining, a whole host of reasons why it's going up. The chart that you shared with us that shows spending from year to year, I think it starts in 2014, it's just going up to the point where your eyes can detect the trend, and it's alarming. So, how can I make this recommendation or float this idea, drop this bomb, knowing that FY '21 is just as bad as this year? What is going to change next year? Here we are, mostly the freshmen of your new Board of Selectmen class, and certainly Jeff has past experience, but we got dropped into this, and I'd like to be able to say, where the voters said that they were not going to take it on their backs this time, and they basically are looking to the government. I'm out of Schlitz. I'm running out of options for how to try and fix this one. I think this way, we a lot of the community has already identified it as an emergency, or it's not so much an emergency. I want to leverage the fact that we had a significant item this year, and that I want to come to the schools, it's a silly thing to say, but I want to come to their rescue for this time because of the facts of what's going on this year. It's just, the stars are aligning for that aspect of it. I don't want to talk too much about it because I kind of gave you my full idea. Yes, Terry?
So you said for this time, and
FY '20.
I'm wondering if this is a good time to introduce the letter from Mr. Francis that he sent to us as a possible solution so that it doesn't occur again?
Yeah, so, yes, Terry, we had a letter, as I think we received before, from a Mr. Noel Francis. This October 3rd letter talks about, again, the process that we've gone through, but the essential point of his letter is that he's been speaking with Representative Whips about making a by request bill, or two bills, that would ask for extra money. I think admittedly in this letter, he says that it's a snowball chances in, below the earth's crust, yep. But again, I applaud the fact that people are trying to come up with ideas. I just don't, go ahead, you highlighted
So
a
it-
section, do you wanna
right,
read that highlighted section?
So we need to answer him by October 31st, but if we did partner with him, write to our representatives or come up with another letter for maybe the fall town meeting,
Yeah. and-
including his concerns, that it might get their attention at the State House.
Yeah, he says, I have two requests. The first request is that you supply me with the alternate deficit and transportation budget numbers if you feel that my numbers are in need of correction. He uses rounded figures. The second request is that you take a formal vote and decide whether you wish to file supplement legislation on your own or support, on your own, or support the bill I intend to file. And he asks for a writing in response by October 31st.
And it wasn't just for transportation, it was for 400,000 for all other expenses of the Narragansett Regional School District.
Yeah, he wants to ask the state for more money.
Because their formula's out of date. I know they're working on that, and they're working on changing the wording for the transportation, but, I mean, I wouldn't be for giving them what you're suggesting unless we had a plan in place that it doesn't happen again, because it didn't work in the past, it hasn't worked in the past. The voters know that, they're not happy with it. It's aggravating that we have to come back for another town meeting on October 22nd because we can't work through this issue,
Yeah.
you know?
That's not gonna fix it, in my estimation.
Yeah, this isn't gonna work for this year.
Not even this year, that's
It
not
might
a,
not ever work.
yeah,
Because
that's a,
and Senator Goby has already gone before, I think, and Representative Whips have discussed, transportation, and put a bill forth. They,
Changing the
with-
wording.
For transportation, and they got up to 80%. And that's as far as they've gotten, and they just recently, got more, for, you know what, it's gonna escape my brain right now, but I've been following her, and they got, some more money passed. It's not a lot, but it's on different, legislation. And I just read through that like maybe a week and a half ago. So, I mean, I would definitely support him, in doing this, and we should really, take a good hard look at this letter. But when you send a bill, through legislation, I mean, all other expenses, I mean, I find it hard pressed that, a bill would get filed or go through any, the House or the Senate, without having, specific needs in place, just all other. I mean, what would, we would have to have some
Desi
specifics in
comes
there.
in, that might give us a chance to have the specifics.
Right, but I mean, at
well,
this
these are
point.
line items. So what
Did he-
Mr. Francis is asking for is that this would be, you know, he's got quotes around Narragansett School District. So this would be like an earmark. Carter, would you think I'm using the right terminology? Yeah, so he's asking for earmarks for Narragansett Regional School District.
So that would work,
Yeah,
possibly.
but again, I say
But it
snowball
won't happen,
chance.
right, in, below the crust.
Oh, what other, you know, many other school districts are going through this. I don't know what a earmark,
Would-
you could request it, but I don't know if there's any precedent that that's ever
Right.
worked where you wind up saying, by the way, can I have an extra 300,000? As
Right.
well as it's written or otherwise. You know,
Right.
Mr. Francis, I certainly, I mean,
I
I don't
love
think
the
that
fact
you
that
were.
he did this.
Yeah, I don't think you were very final and, you know, that's the whole plan. I think you got your point across. We definitely understand it and we're discussing it now, but
Right,
earmarks, I don't know.
When we talked with Phillipston.
I mean, I think we should ask for more transportation.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
When we met with Phillipston, we talked about the Mars Group. Is
Yeah, that's
that
on-
something
Yeah,
that would
that's-
help
Yeah,
us
that's an
as
in-
well
That's the
going
next-
We have
forward?
we
Is
have that
that,
as an agenda item tonight.
okay.
But yes, that's part of it, is to basically develop that coalition and using Mars as the catalyst for that.
If we didn't have a plan in place for alternate, so that this doesn't happen again, because, again, listening to the voters, this happens every year with the school. So we really do need to come up with something as a board in a town to to alleviate the burden off the taxpayers going forward, how we're going to support the school. Because our kids are our future. I'm not against
Yeah.
the school. Our kids are our future. I'm very thankful for the education I have and my children have. And it is something that I really would be interested in supporting in the future in a healthy way, in that,
Yep.
you know?
But, you know, we continually say we have a revenue problem.
Right,
We
we
don't
have a revenue
have,
problem.
when we look at what our local contributions are, that's where we wind up coming back to say we don't have it within our current tax rate structure, receipts, or otherwise. We, you know, we have enough. We did a really good job of saying we're funding our own town for the tune of between 6 and 7 million for our town. And then another 6 million for the school district. So it's really quite substantial when you consider how much you're using of your existing revenue, and we just don't have enough to do the rest. If we say the school is the primary, they get their 6.9, the rest is pretty darn important. You know, shutting down the town, any aspect of the town, nothing is good. People forget the seminar or the piece that Carter offered about timing. If we take cuts and otherwise, we've got the timing at the end of the year for sending out tax bills and things like that. So you've got this intricate thing going on. But you're right, the discussion is, all right, great, we're talking about FY '20, and maybe we'll get out of this, maybe we won't, but then we're gonna be right back there with FY '21. I can say that FY '21 is in front of us, and we've gotta be, you talk about innovation, we gotta get very innovative in trying to find some efficiencies. We've already talked, I have it on the agenda tonight to talk about the meeting where all the chairs met with the TAs and, who else was there? TAs and the chairs, and the superintendent, that's who I was forgetting. About the discussion to say, now is the time, we need to find our efficiencies. Are we gonna try and do for instance, a joint HR manager, or something like that, where we wind up trying to trim their budget down in FY '21 while we have time to do that. We are out of time for FY '20. That's why I proposed using free cash for an acceptable use.
I just don't want to go into this next, I think the October 22nd meeting is crucial. And Dr. Cassavant said the same thing.
Yeah.
It's crucial. It's crucial. And I don't want to go in there without a strategy.
Tonight is the 9th. We do not meet next week. That's correct?
Not unless the board schedules something.
Right. Very good point. And then the week after that, Tuesday is the 22nd. There's nothing the Friday, the 25th. I don't know where the 25th came up. Maybe just me. I thought there was something on the 25th, but maybe it's always been the 22nd. Okay.
Murder mystery train in Burlington.
So, for tonight,
We have to decide.
I think that the board does not want to go into a meeting without having something to offer. You know, we had talked about that at one of our last meetings about, we have no comment. And that really puts us in a precarious position of up to the voters again.
I think the voters are looking to us to lead.
Yep.
don't know,
So
Jeff, how do
we
you feel
have with
about that?
19.5, but I think that
How do you feel about
repetition.
that? What are your thoughts on that? I hate to make you talk if your throat is sore.
On Mike's proposal?
No, like, how do you feel about going to the meeting? Like, do you want to stay silent? Do you want to do the same thing again, like go in with a number?
If I sound like this, I'm gonna stay silent.
I know, I can smell your cough
She
drops down
said
here,
that.
they're so strong.
She said that she thinks that the voters are looking to us to lead.
That's what I said, I
What
think that
is
the
your
voters look
comment
to us
on
to
that?
lead, but
Well, do we get leadership out of doing 19.5? Do we get leadership out of offering to to fund using our free cash, what kind of leadership?
See, but the thing is if we drop that on the school committee at a meeting, they're not allowed to vote to even discuss it. I mean, they wouldn't have the time to discuss that.
So I'll tell you how it would roll.
Okay.
If that's what this board was amendable to doing, and we made that our decision to use a portion of free cash to basically close this gap that we have, then the 19,786 number would stay, because that is what the school, that's what the school committee has voted on. Yes, Carter?
I just want to make sure everyone understands that if your thought is to support the 19,786 with our share of the 286 coming out of free cash, to mitigate cuts you would have to make in your budget, please understand that use of free cash might be your plan, but it does have to be voted upon by the voters at the fall town
Yeah,
meeting.
it wouldn't
And
work
should
for right
they
now.
do that, then your plan works.
Darn.
Should they
Sorry.
not do it,
So
then you
sorry.
are still left with those
I
cuts.
apologize to
I
the
mean,
public.
I just want to make sure you understand
Yes.
that.
Yes, Terry?
I applaud your brainstorming and your heart. You've offered them, extended them an olive branch. As a board, we voted to offer them a compromise, and it's,
My phone is
I
supposed
don't
to
wanna
be
get
dead.
into it's us versus them. It's not where my heart is. It's just this crisis that we're in right now, and I don't think we need to, I don't support it. I don't support using the free cash. You know, I'm at a loss for what to do. I'm new on the board. Again, I'm a freshman, but I'm not supportive of it. I think we've tried 2 things so far, and, you know, again, 3 times, no votes, 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I could pull out a Hail Mary.
I think that was Mike's Hail Mary.
Yeah.
I think that's Mike's Hail Mary, and I think.
The
based on
ultimate
what-
Hail Mary is to make, is to work with the school committee to get their FY '21 spending under control, and actually, Carter's just talking about 3-year plan, but to actually to tame this tame this lion, to start trimming down so we live within our means as they are right now. I know Margaret kept advocating for us to do an override, and we said nope. There are so many different factors that we consider after that vote to say we're not there. Could we support another override in FY '21? If we needed to do that, it's not, we don't forget what happened. However, we wind up going through the process again. I would like to think that we would get to a better number for FY '21. Again, that's what they're elected to do. That's what they have paid people to do. I don't do their budget, but I am pledged to try and help them understand that it's more than what their 2 towns can support. Or actually, in this case, Phillipson said okay.
Right, but
Yeah, that's my
Phillipson
Hail
said
Mary.
okay, but like Mr. Specht said, this time it barely passed.
That is true.
Whereas before,
Yeah.
it passed by a larger margin. So he's afraid that in a coming year, it may not pass. And they're gonna be in the same position that we're in. Now,
Yeah.
he did explain that at the joint meeting. So at this point, where Mr. Terenzini just said that we wouldn't be able to support it until the fall meeting, I think that your Hail Mary just got overthrown. So I think, because that's not,
That was not my intent. I
understand that, but I'm just trying
I
to.
just want the board to be aware
The
of.
town's
thank you.
gonna
I
have
understand.
to,
So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that,
thank you, Carter.
so it's just, it kind of overshoots it a little bit. So, right now, I guess what I'm saying is, I want to go into the October 22nd meeting and I want to support what we've done before and stand up and make an amended motion of 19.5, and that's where I'm at.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to first, before we go farther,
Mhm.
this email that I received from Christine Lynch from DESI, where it says for Narragansett, the amount established for the 1/12 budget was based on the school committee's FY20 total budget request because it was lower than the fiscal 19. I would like to make a motion, a formal motion, to have the town administrator request the information that was provided to DESI for them to come to that conclusion. I just went back and looked at 19 next to 20. DESI has a new, they just put it up today, or I saw it today.
I saw that.
Where you can go and look at all the information, like in-district total budget, out-of-district budget for like the school choice and all that stuff, and then their total budget. They've only got up to fiscal 18 in there. But I am just curious, I don't know if there was an error made or what, because I just can't find to see how fiscal 20 is less than fiscal 19.
It's
Right.
not.
So I would just like,
Okay.
because maybe there was an error, maybe there was a transposition mistake or something, or somebody read
Right.
something, or DESI took the debt and said, oh, they had debt last year, they don't have it this year, so it's,
Okay.
I don't know, but I would like to find that
Would
out.
you like a formal
I
vote,
can
or
second
does,
that.
would, would
second
Carter
that.
just need consensus? Would you like
Consensus.
a vote?
Consensus
Yes,
is fine
please.
with me, whatever satisfies the board.
Yes, please.
Or would you like to,
If it's a
to make it-
consensus, fine, but,
Okay. yep.
By what date can we have that?
Well, I mean that, I would say that's in the delivery. If Carter's gonna contact Ms. Lynch to request the materials that went into it. Now, the purpose for it is to get to a certain point to say, you've given them an error.
if there was an error made, and we've been paying them off of a higher budget number, then,
We can adjust.
you're ahead of the game.
Right.
I mean, money-wise. I just
Yeah, I see what
just
you're
saw
saying.
that, and I
Didn't
couldn't
see
wrap
it.
my head around how
Okay.
they
All right.
make that statement.
Yeah, Carter, I think you've got consensus to be able to ask for that.
That's fine.
You had something
Thank
else?
you. Thank you, Jeff, for that.
When you're sick, 3 in the morning, you got nothing else to do but do this.
You're a hard man to
Very
keep up
thankful.
with, Jeff, you know,
You can't
He and I
sleep,
were-
so you gotta do
did
something.
a couple of things last night, what, at 8 o'clock or 8:30 or something?
Oh, my gosh.
Well, that's better than when he or I are up at 4:15 in the morning.
You know, you're backing off your hours, but I still want you to feel wanted and needed.
Okay, so that's additional information. I'd like to either come up with something tonight from this board, or let's make another meeting between now and the 22nd, because we won't meet again between that meeting, to come up with it. If people need time to consider it, we've got some that are in favor of 19.5, we have some, we have one, me,
You,
for the free cash. We've got one against the free cash. You know,
I'm in favor of the free cash, but it doesn't seem like it will work in time. I would like to hear Jeff's thoughts. It's important to me.
I'm just in favor of going with 19.5 again. The voters have spoken multiple times.
I know, we need to listen
I
to
just,
them.
they keep going back to that.
They feel like we're
They
not
don't,
listening.
they
they're
don't want
not
their
listening
school
to-
getting cut, but they don't want their towns decimated either.
Right.
And that's where I'm at. Now, I'm also in favor of the idea of having another meeting between now and the 22nd, be it a week from today or Wednesday.
Yeah.
Maybe Carter has an answer. We
Okay.
could run that proposal by, because we don't even know, they might just tell you to flip off, you know.
I know.
They might just tell us, no. We don't want no capital thing, we just want our,
Would you like to have money?
1970.
No.
So,
Well,
we may could get to, the answers to those questions before we meet and be in a better, have some more information in front of us to make a better decision.
I'm in favor of that. Could we run that by them?
Mr. Chair, Carter. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, listening to all these things, pulling it together, you might want to consider requesting of the school district and DESI the information that was supplied, because one source might be quicker than the other to respond. You could
How do you wanna
tell
handle that?
I'm sorry, what?
How do you wanna handle that? Do you want?
I would send an email to the superintendent in the morning.
I concur.
And I would send an email to Ms. Lynch,
I
just
concur.
simply saying, we understand that you set the budget for 20,
It was lesser.
based on 20, because it was lesser, we're struggling to understand that. Can you give us the documents? You could tell the school district that you've not made a decision of what you're gonna do yet, which is to them, a positive gesture, if you might.
Mhm.
And reinforcing that the suggestion of free cash, but we only do it when it works things out. Can they think about, how would they look at that? How would you look at that workout plan? It might provide at least you a little more time, a little more level of comfort that you've tried absolutely everything you can. Provide them with a gesture. Though I have sent you what the initial revenue projections are for next year. I mean, it's just straight math.
Yeah.
But it would require another meeting I would say next Wednesday, would probably be kind of your last time to do this. And Mr. Chairman, I could work with you on
Are you
that.
saying Wednesday, for availability purposes? Because, we can talk about next week. We could meet, the day before, Monday, the 21st.
I'm just thinking about,
can't.
No, Monday's the 14th.
I can't meet on
Oh,
Monday or
authorizing.
Tuesday.
Okay,
I can only meet on Wednesday.
okay, so that
We have a
would,
I don't
meeting,
have
and if we decide
availability
on
because
something,
I
we
have a
need
show.
time to, you need to have a little time to communicate that and put the information out.
okay.
because your
Is that-
advisory committee meets on Thursday, the
Thur-
17th, I believe.
I think next.
Next Thursday. Mr. Chairman, what I could do is I would do those drafts early in the morning, get them off to you, so you could, work your Hail Mary wording into it, so
Yep.
you're comfortable with it, so that it reflects, hopefully, the feeling of everyone on the body, and then I get them out.
Yeah, on the 16th. Is that what you meant?
Well, I'd get those emails to you first thing in the morning, we'd get them off.
Yep.
Hopefully get some reactions by the 16th, so that the body could meet at the 16th and take their final
Okay.
vote.
I understood what you're saying then. And then, I think it's maybe
The
it's an.
school committee has a meeting on the 16th as well,
Do
but I
they?
would rather be here.
Maybe the added bonus is that the advisory committee would be meeting the next day on the 17th. Then it would be a single agenda item.
Just the
you agree?
schools.
Yep, okay. So let's go, we don't need a vote or anything like that. Does everyone wanna meet the 16th?
A week from today, sure.
It's a week from today, same bat time, same bat channel.
At 6:30?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
My phone is dead, so I'll have to put that in.
I'll send it out.
I'll
I
get
know,
that
but
email out to you
I
as early as.
still can't get that calendar to show up on my
You
phone.
and I should meet at 6 o'clock then.
I'll get that email to you as early as I can, and I'll text you as well, once
Sure.
it's
Okay,
off to you.
sure. All right, does anyone want to talk more about the school district? All right, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is 5 golf, or G. Week ago, we met in Phillipston and we talked about forming a coalition, integrated with, Mars. I don't know if integrated's the right word. Having another, whether it's other district meeting, just looking at the text here, or we'd even talked about, commission for a district study. What would we like to talk about this evening? Probably stick with, what would a coalition look like, or recommendation? Carter, do you have anything on that? I think I had asked for this.
Well,
but I didn't.
the hope had been that Mars would put together a summit on three main elements. Element number one being the new Student Opportunities Act and the political process. That is quickly passing us by, with no inclusion by Mars or school districts of their member communities. And I remain absolutely convinced that without the member towns becoming a much stronger voice in this, that the school districts to themselves will continue to just float along.
Yeah.
And when you read that legislation, and I know Jeff probably to the point where he can start reciting each sections,
Yeah.
you'll see that for the most part, the emphasis is upon poverty levels, ELLs, English language learners, and other challenges of much larger urban communities. The second piece of that was litigation. Orange, Chicopee, and others have sued the district, but they were supported by public interest, NAACP, and other kinds of nonprofits who took that on pro bono because that's what they're all about. We don't have that kind of public interest group in our corner. That means that the member towns, the school districts, town councils of the member towns must be part of putting that coalition together, putting that litigation together, looking at what makes us different than the standalone districts, Orange, Chicopee, Lowell, Lawrence, and the others. And that takes real time and real money. And then finally, there's the issue of reinventing the districts. It's not just about staying within fixed boundaries and saying, how are we going to cut costs? Well, it reaches a point to where you simply can't cut costs
Right.
anymore. I mean,
No more
look at all the things
efficiencies,
you've
yeah,
done.
Yeah,
How would you cut costs in Luann's office?
right.
How would you cut costs in Cheryl's office or in Laurie's office? You know, you reach a point where it's just, there is no economy of scale.
Mhm.
So I'd like to take another run at Mars to see if they'll put that together. If not, then I'll come back to the board and speak to, other ways that we might get
Okay.
these member towns involved.
What's our first step here? Is it reaching out to Mars to request a summit or some, for them to be like that?
I think,
use the word
I think
catalyst.
it's, I've reached out to them a couple times, and I think that it's a, fish or cut bait on their part. And frankly, what are they about? I mean, if they're not doing this kind of thing with their member towns, what are they all about? And I think that's a question that really member towns and the RSDs, regional school districts, need to discuss. Then there's, whatever you think of those three things, there is the instant matter of the agreement.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, setting a date for a formal review.
That's, I've been advocating for this for 3 years.
Yep. So, whose responsibility is that to take the reins to say, here is the list of dates for a formal review?
Well, I guess that
Set an
becomes,
agenda
yeah.
and otherwise.
I think that, that becomes your point of view. We asked school district for it. They indicated that they wanted to have their attorney, their counsel look at that. We have received no response on that. This
Okay.
body, and I believe Phillipston, have both spoken to the district agreement. And were advised by the chair, well, you have the right to petition for agreements.
Okay.
So at what point do you say, okay, we asked you to do it, you asked for some time, you didn't do it, your own agreement says you're supposed to do it, we've asked you to do it again, you kind of told us we were on our own, so at what point do the two towns say, okay, we're on our own, we'll do it? As opposed to going back and
Yeah.
asking
How have we done it?
once again.
How, yeah, well, how has that been done before? Just like an email, a memo, something like that? Phone call?
They have been out in the open in this room.
All right. Would you chuckle
that
at
also,
me
by
if
the
I
way,
said, let me get a memo to, the school district
I
and
I
CC
wouldn't-
Phillipston to
I
say,
wouldn't chuckle at all, yeah, I probably would.
you are chuckling.
Not at you, not at you, Mr. Chairman, not
No, I
at you.
wouldn't chuckle, yeah, I probably would.
That's because that's where I would start. I know that you just said that, we've, we've done it already, but I guess if no response, then we wind up moving forward with people that do meet. Even if we wind up staring at each other in a room and we we basically have that formal review. We pull out and we say, in accordance with section blah, blah, blah of the school district agreement, we are performing a review. We have invited the school district and we have invited Phillipston, and they have declined, or, of the dates that we suggested. I can see that part working, so we wind up actually having a review. To get it done, to say, I have a review, it was fruitless, we came up with a list of things that we'd like to change. Maybe they become an article that we wind up setting.
And this will advise some specialized counsel,
Okay,
I'm an expert on how I think that thing should read from our perspective, I believe. I'm not an expert in the municipal, in the education law,
yeah,
under chapter 70, and we will need some advice
all right, well,
on that. And that is something that
I
Diane
will
had
start the
asked
ball
for.
rolling yet again. So at least we wind up having recent memory within this, Board of Selectmen. I'm sorry if it winds up being duplicitous or banging your head against the wall. And certainly if I can provide you a chuckle, I would do that. But let me do this. Let's send the memo. Let's say, here it is.
It's
We
more
said we
commentary
wanna
on
do this.
Phillipston sent their amendment in, the district agreement's very clear on what's supposed to happen.
Right.
I can assure you that that has yet to be received in this building.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
did
they
say
made that point at
They did.
our joint meeting.
Ruth French did make that point. How hard she worked and it.
So no wonder why we're having, this budget crisis and otherwise. We just can't seem to get out of first gear with this thing. So let's do what we can to try and reinvigorate that. I guess really if it falls on us, I've been making more and more phone calls. If that's what it takes, fine. But we gotta get out of first gear on this. No wonder why we're having our third joint meeting.
It is hard to tango when only one shows up at the dance, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman.
Let me know how I can help.
Of course. Okay. Next item on the agenda is articles for town meeting. I do not have my list in front of me, but I think the intent was to either review it, or if we had any additional, the warrant goes out probably in about, a week?
Well, we're working on the draft warrant now.
Okay.
Jeff and I, although we may push off.
Yeah, I saw your note about that.
We may be pushing off till Tuesday, so it feels a little bit better, or at least after hours, so I can give him a little bit of
Right. Do we,
medicinal
is it
support.
worth it to, if we're gonna meet on the 16th, do we add that in there? I mean, that's just another agenda item.
I mean, at this point, if there's something that needs to be added, that's what I really need to know about, so I can get to work on it. I think that the simpler thing is if we
Yeah.
can just, Jeff
I
and
mean,
I
if
can
it's everything
chat.
that Jeff has given us warning on, yeah, proceed. I mean, I don't think you
I
haven't
think
said
there may only be one or two items for on the bylaw side. Some of the others, I think, are more related to potential revisions of the financial management policy.
Okay.
One of the unfortunate side effects of not having a school budget is we've spent much more time on that would have gone into,
The other.
getting ready for next year.
For the fall, so my bomb, my Hail Mary, would need to be an article.
Yes,
Yes.
Could it be written as a, our last special town meeting, the second article was written, not open-ended, but written so that we had room to maneuver if a certain number was picked. Is there a way? It's all about timing, right? I understand the way that the board's talking tonight, but I still want that, I'm still considering it as a possibility to be able to try that out. If it does not make it to the warrant, then really it's not something that we can do.
correct. It must be listed
Yeah, it's
in the
already-
warrant.
Mr. Chairman, would it be something that we could do Survey Monkey on and get a feel for what
Kind of
the
already,
voters?
kind of already done that. I had, several people, I have, advisory committee is discussing it within their meetings. This is the use of free cash for this, I went on, I don't, if you plan to watch the meeting, I go into detail on it. I've already heard a lot about it. I've already heard people talk about, why aren't you using stabilization? Why aren't you using free cash for this? So, I don't know if I need any more Survey Monkey. If you do, if you wanna, Adam talked about his great listening tour. If you need to kind of pull, you receive a lot of stuff through social media. Maybe you could turn it around and say, what is your thoughts on this? Remember, you've got I don't know your representative sample on some of these social media sites. I don't know that for a fact, but what I'm trying to do is preserve maneuverability. If it's not added into as an article, then it's not gonna happen. So if I propose $300,000, what was it, 286 of free cash to be able to do that, if it's not on the fall town meeting, then it ain't gonna happen. I can't, and I'm not gonna spend the money to do a special town meeting just to ask that question. Yes, Diane?
Could we put it on there, and then if something happens and we don't need it, could we just pass it over?
Sure.
Is
I
that
say
something-
sure, I'm the only guy right now who's advocating for this. I think it's great that we're basically pushing it out and meeting again, so we can have time
I
to.
didn't say I wasn't
Yeah,
advocating
oh, you
for it.
did, you know what, I apologize, you did
sorry.
say it,
Yeah, I did.
I'm sorry.
But I'm saying, could we put it on there, and then if we don't need it, we just pass it over?
Well, to add
Or
an
we just
article to
say we're
that
not-
would be a vote of this
Right,
board.
Carter, do we just pass it over? Or do we not we don't make a motion
Well,
on it?
there's two ways to do it. Different moderators do it differently, but there is a passover vote. But some moderators will not accept that until after one person has spoken on one side and one person has spoken on another. There are some moderators who, if you just don't make a motion, consider it dead, and then they wait for the adjournment.
Oh,
I will tell you that if we're going to have our fall town meeting on November 20, which we're on that Wednesday issue, because the following Wednesday is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I will need that warrant at your October 23rd meeting. That's
right,
about
so,
27 days.
we're running,
So next week.
could we decide next week? When
yes,
we hear
but-
more from the
but-
school committee?
Yes.
So maybe we
but-
can
But
wait
we are
until the
running out of some
16th.
time here.
Okay.
Okay.
If it's gonna happen, it'll be on the 16th.
Okay,
I would have, if we had said that it couldn't happen then, I would have asked, for your support tonight as a contingency if that wind up becoming an option that people could get behind. But if we're able to deal with this on the 16th, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I really would like to try to get the fall town meeting by November 20. Otherwise, I slip into the first week of December.
Yep.
it just
I
starts
agree
getting
with you.
dicey.
Agree with you. Okay, any other discussion of articles for town meeting? Okay, moving on to old business. We've got board and staff member comments and reports. Just very quickly, I just wanted to let everyone know that, that was last week, correct?
I think so.
Time blends together. So, myself, Carter, Margaret, Hughes, Chris Casavant, Kim Pratt, and Kevin Flynn, we all met over at the superintendent's office, their central office, and had a meeting to discuss. More of it was about the future, and I think very little was about the present, FY '20. But it was a good meeting. It was Margaret's first opportunity to apologize for her town meeting outburst, which I think she tried it out on us first, and it worked well. But we discussed efficiencies. We talked about really trying to work together to get through FY '21 and beyond. It was the first meeting that we had. I think it was very positive. I think we all agree that more communication, I guess you can't just keep adding meetings and expect that you're gonna get someplace. But if you schedule meetings with the right people and you have an agenda and you actually have, set goals that at least where you can demand, you can be a little bit pushy and demand, at the end of the meeting, where are we with this? What needs to be done? Kinda like I asked Carter, what do I do? What do I do with Mars? Do I send a memo? Do I send a carrier pigeon? What do I do to start this first step, or second or third? But I just wanted to make sure you knew that we were having the meeting and what our agenda was. Carter, do you have any thoughts on that? Okay.
Are you having any follow-up meetings?
We are. I can't remember if we actually.
I can't remember the date,
We did set
So you're
another
going to
meeting.
you're
We're gonna continue this
to-
as joint chairs, TA and superintendent meeting.
Oh, good, that's good.
There was one thing that came out of the meeting, if I might. They have invited a former deputy commissioner, deputy secretary,
I don't have my
and
notebook.
I can't remember his name right now, who
You're
had
good,
been
Chris.
primarily responsible for calculating the amount of monies that were due to various communities, and sort of the local aid, if you will, of their formulas. Certainly, one of the questions that we want to ask them is about the foundation formula, the hold harmless, to make sure people understand that. And why are we only getting $37,000, $38,000, $39,000 a year? Because we're getting that $30 a child. So if you have questions about the local aid formula, and specific questions about the amount of money you're getting from the state of Massachusetts, how it sorts through that, what drives that process. If you could get questions like that to me over the coming week or so,
Yep.
we can get them off to the former deputy commissioner, and he's hoping that he can sharpen the focus of his presentation. So that's important here over the next week or so, and perhaps you could bring them with you for next Wednesday night. So, Mike, I wanted to make sure we got that out,
Yep.
because I forgot about that.
Yeah, they were asking, so that was the feedback. Okay. Short of my Hail Mary bomb, that's all I had this evening. Are there any other board or staff member comments tonight?
Yes. So I've thought long and hard about this, and tonight at the school committee meeting, there were a lot of students there. And I'm not as active in social media as I used to be for my own mental health. But I've seen a lot of commentary regarding a certain Facebook page. The students expect us as parents to help them have a voice, and they are allowed to have a voice. And as of right now, a movement has started, and they're going to have that voice, and they are not going to be silenced. They want to say in their education, and I could feel that in the air tonight. And a couple of the school committee members spoke about, one student, as I stated, spoke up and said there are some fairly derogatory comments that were made about the students, which dismays me completely. This is not an us versus them regarding students or the school committee or this board. We are trying to do the best that we can with the budgets that we have. And I was watching a couple of my parents speak, and I was told an elected official called out a high school student, and I'm not sure who it is, and it doesn't really matter to me, and put their name and their email and their phone number out there. And I really hope that that's not the case, and I hope that it's just a rumor. As an elected official, I am held to a higher standard. We represent our community as a whole. Doesn't matter whether it's a student or elderly. I have a huge cross-section of all walks of life. For as long as I've been on this board, and even longer, I used to volunteer before I ever became a board member. I thought long and hard about doing this. So I hope that we can stand with our students and teach them about civics and about all the things that we do here, and hope that one day that one of them will sit in this place of honor that we are bestowed, and that we teach them that it is truly a privilege to sit in this seat and represent all the members of our community. So if we're on that derogatory page that I've been hearing about, I hope that we would just get off of it, and that there's no point in arguing with people who are just have nothing good to say about our community, because Templeton is an amazing place to live, and an amazing place, and I love representing you all, and I hope that everyone knows that. I've done a good job for you all, and I really want to continue it to be that way, and I hope that we support our students and not put them down and put them to shame. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
I have nothing.
Terry?
All right, so first I was gonna address, Mike, you had asked me about transfer stations, and I was looking into that. And I went on, a lot of people don't know that we are invited to do the Winchendon transfer station. The Templeton residents are welcome. You can go on the Winchendon Town Facebook page. Stickers are $70 a year, $35 after March. You buy their bags, $4 for a 33-gallon bag, $2 for a 16-gallon bag. You can also pay at the transfer station by check only, or go to their DPW or their town hall. And there are other things that, on their website, that indicate what you can bring there.
Yeah.
For recyclables and
Yep, I'm a former
the
resident.
fees
Yep.
and all, everything like that. I did talk to somebody today that is already taking advantage of that,
Mhm.
but, and there were other people. Today I was fortunate to go, enough to go to the Norcross Wildlife
Mm.
Management area.
Yeah, thanks for,
It was
doing
very uplifting,
yeah.
because we do have an amazing community, and I was very grateful for the privilege and very humbled, you know, to say thank you to all those that partnered together for the previous board, for you and Julie and the previous board. John Henshaw spoke, and it's just so uplifting and amazing to be there and to have that privilege to say thank you very much for all those who partnered. And if you haven't been out there, you've got to go out there. I'm an outdoor person, and I've always hiked the Ferncole side, and I know that we look forward to working with Mass Wildlife in the future, and Mr. Amadon and all those that, Mr. McCarthy. It's just beautiful out there. It's phenomenal. So that and, you know, transfer station too kind of go hand in hand, because we do need to preserve our wildlife, you know, and what the hunters do, it's gonna be opened up for hunters. What they do to cull the flock and keep our animals healthy is very important, so I'm excited about that. I've taken every course they've offered for certification for Mass Wildlife, and, again, thank you for all the hard work that people have done, the previous board and all those that came together for that. And about that Facebook page, people are people, you know, and I don't necessarily like all the comments or support all the comments. I think people are venting on that page, but I do like to know what people are thinking, and it makes me think, it makes me a better person, and I hold myself to a higher standard, but I also care about blue-collar workers and people that don't necessarily have the same abilities as I do.
On the Winchendon, is that from like a memorandum of understanding, agreement? Are they just, is that
Kind of
just
a-
invitation only?
Kind of a Keith Hickey, Carter Terenzini handshake.
Okay,
Um,
so it's not involved with time, like, 2021, they're not gonna say, all right, you're out?
I mean, they could, but
Yeah,
at
they
this
haven't.
point,
It's just an open invitation.
they're happy to get the extra sticker fees.
Sure.
And to get the extra, I believe, last count, I'll get a new count for you, but we had 38 families from Templeton taking advantage of that at no cost to us or to the taxpayers of
Right.
Templeton. It's a nice little service.
Yep.
Because it also has the bulky waste during the course. You don't have to wait for
Yeah.
our bulky waste collections.
Being a former resident of Winchendon, we use the transfer station, and they do a great job. They've had different ways of running it over the years, but I think that the town they're on top with it now, meaning it makes a profit, and the fact that they share it with us, I think is fantastic. It offers a lot of flexibility. Some of the services in town, they offer a lot of services, but I know that that's a local thing rather than going to Waste Manager or otherwise. But thanks for looking that stuff up. That was really
I'm
good.
just not sure, like you said, would we profit by it? So far, it's been the opinion of people that I've asked that we wouldn't.
If we had our own transfer station.
Right.
When we had our meet the candidate night, and you said, I thought I was, I think I was inspired by the fact that you wanted to do that within our community, and if there was a way to do it, supporting green initiatives and otherwise, and especially if it turns into revenue for the town, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a discussion that we could have to say, if we wanted to do it ourselves, what is the impact to the community? Where would we even have space for it or otherwise? But, to start the conversation to say, we did it perfectly because we said, what do we have now? And I think that part of your research for that was excellent. Thank you. Okay, Steph, yes.
Quickly, we did sort of our Finance 101, the finance team.
I watched it. It was excellent.
Luann did a great job. We really took it from the ground up, starting from, we assess properties, here's how we go through it.
Yeah.
We send out bills, and then Cheryl took over and then here's how we do that, and then Kelly did, and here's how we track that money and report
Yeah.
everything to the state and tie it all back in. So if anyone hasn't had a chance to watch it, didn't take that long. I think we did it in about an hour and a half.
That's correct.
For anyone who's out there and did have a chance to watch it,
Huge
if
plug.
you still had questions or you thought, maybe we could have done a little bit better job, we'd really love to have those comments, because one of us has the job of turning all that into a module for Citizens Academy that we'd really like to try to do before we get into the next
Okay.
annual town meeting.
Yep.
So that if more people have a better understanding of municipal finance, they can be better
Yeah.
informed in making those decisions.
It's a rude awakening for a lot of people. I say rude because it's a lot.
There's a lot, and we did our best. There's more, but I think it wasn't a bad little
Yeah.
package. Secondly, we did kick off the capital planning process tonight. Adam, Bob May, Cheryl. Unfortunately, we still are lacking citizen at large appointees. If you're wondering why we have to buy a police car every year, you may have heard the chief say that the 2009 did die.
It did.
And
Huge-
why,
huge puddle of
you
oil.
know, why there may be times in the winter when you know we've got a number of trucks, but you don't see them on the road. Cause they're deadlined, redlined for 2, 3, 4 days at highway. So if you're interested in, you know, why we spend capital money the way we do, you're looking for a sort of a short burst of involvement to get your toes wet. This is a great place to do it. Longer term or year-round, we have some vacancies on the Council on Aging, entering an important time as we look at planning for the coming year. And then the Conservation Commission has some openings as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I do have one more thing.
Yep, I have one question. I had asked Chief Bennett for a talk of the town. I don't think I said it in terms of, hey, before the end of the year. Was hoping it would be quickly. Is he on the schedule for a talk of the town?
Just chatted with him, he has a lot going on right now.
Okay.
So I would assume he would be the second one.
Okay.
So we would have somebody
I just want to
else.
make sure he's on the dance card for that.
Yeah, because we had Luann recently, but Chief Bennett will be one
Yep.
of them. I think he's happy with doing a half an hour.
That's fine. I think that if we hit on the things that we would, you know, that he gets questions about, that's good. When we started, that was gonna be, yeah, enough.
Did the chief talk about his open house?
He did.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
he
Then I
gave
was
his,
gonna bring that up.
yeah,
And I did not, unfortunately, my car died, and I did not get to go to the school's open house and opening ceremony.
okay.
But
Yeah,
heard
I
it
don't
was
know.
very successful.
Yeah, I had sent,
There were
you
tons
saw that I
of
saw,
cars.
I sent some stuff. It was a lot of last minute planning or otherwise. I sent a speech over. I don't know if Chris read it or not.
Oh. Well, I did go to the police
You did read it?
stations. No, I did go to the police station's open house, and it was quite successful.
Okay.
I did go to
Yep,
that.
so Chris, what Steve said, he
So,
did read it, which, again, you know, like olive branch
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But again, a huge achievement for us. I hate the dark cloud that's above us, but whatever.
Yeah, my car
Okay.
died, and I had to wait for somebody to come and jumpstart me.
Anything
So-
else? Adam? Holly? Mr. Terenzini, request for executive session?
We have no need this evening, Mr. Chairman.
I was hoping you were gonna say that. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second? All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye?
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.